The air in the reclaimed substation tastes of ozone and cold coffee, the low hum of the war surplus transmitter a constant heartbeat against the skeletal server racks. Neon tubes, the color of old wounds, cast long shadows over hand-labeled vinyl records. Outside, the city breathes, 1,000 stories etched into its concrete and brass.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
In Toronto, we're reading 79 degrees Fahrenheit with haze. Airflow is northwest at about 10 miles per hour. Static lifts for half a breath. The vinyl crackles under the needle. The line is live. Patching in a caller, the contrarian. You're on the signal.
Upend the rules-based order. That's a dramatic claim, Togee. What are the concrete facts showing Washington's specific actions, not just rhetoric? Where's the evidence of a deliberate strategy?
Fair challenge, caller. Sand's statement, echoed in HRW reports like World Report 2024, points to specific patterns. Consider the previous US administration's withdrawal from the Paris Agreement and the World Health Organization, or its consistent undermining of the International Criminal Court's jurisdiction, even imposing sanctions on ICC officials. These aren't isolated incidents. They signal a selective disengagement from established international norms.
That disengagement directly exposes the fragility of multilateral institutions and the global consensus they represent. The smallest testable move here is observing how U.S. actions, like unilateral sanctions against countries like Iran or Cuba, often sidestep UN Security Council approval, effectively redefining international legal boundaries. An alternative path would be to actively strengthen and participate in UN oversight mechanisms, ensuring collective action over unilateral decrees.
My meters blink red when these rules are seen as optional. It's like a lineage of treaties and conventions, from the Treaty of Westphalia to the UN Charter, suddenly being treated as a suggestion. Who carries the cost? Often it's the global South, caught between geopolitical power plays without the structural leverage to demand adherence.
Yeah, you gotta know who's tapping the wire. For this scenario, a playable next step could involve regional blocs, like the African Union or ASEAN, forging stronger, binding inter-regional agreements that assert a collective, consent-based counter-narrative to unilateralism. This builds resilient inner and civic architectures from the ground up, not top-down.
Patching in a caller. Go ahead.
So you're saying other nations should essentially create their own version of international law? That sounds ambitious and could lead to more fragmentation, not less. Who pays for enforcing these new frameworks?
It's ambitious, yes, but necessary for provenance. Think of it as asserting unwavering autonomy. The next move experiment for communities facing this erosion could involve establishing new, peer-to-peer international accountability mechanisms. Funding comes from shared commitments to human dignity and mutual aid, not from a single hegemon. This integrates logic and emotion as complementary structural vectors.
Exactly. Small, federated diplomatic initiatives are already proving viable. The Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, ELAC, for instance, offers a blueprint for regional cooperation that prioritizes sovereign interests without external influence, bypassing larger, potentially compromised platforms. It's a distributed dignity model.
The technical hurdles are shrinking. We've seen open source protocols mature, allowing for easier deployment of these localized digital commons. The signal integrity is actually stronger when the network is designed for mutual aid, not mass extraction.
It's like patching your own amp. You learn how it works, you control the sound. The Gig Passport mesh evolved this way. Artists wanted direct connections, not opaque algorithms pushing them around. This is about consent and provenance, not just convenience.
Indeed, it's about integrating the logic of communal benefit with the emotion of individual empowerment. These aren't rival powers, they're structural vectors for a more dignified digital future. You've given us plenty to consider, caller. Thanks for tuning in. The hum of the tube amps deepens slightly, a steady pulse against the city's distant murmur. Moving from global rules to shadowy tech, we shift our lens to France. reports suggest they explored a Pegasus spyware deal, even amidst damning allegations of Moroccan espionage using the very same tool. A key voice has just joined us. Sharp discernment, caller. The Pegasus Project revelations in 2021, a consortium of 17 media organizations, exposed how NSO Group's Pegasus spyware was used to target over 50,000 phone numbers globally. Specific facts include claims by Le Monde and The Guardian that French President Emmanuel Macron's phone was on a list of potential targets for Moroccan intelligence, a claim Morocco denies. Despite this, reports in Mediapart and Politico indicated French authorities, including intelligence services, were evaluating NSO Group's technology for their own use, highlighting a potential moral and ethical blind spot. Exactly, Kaylin. The Next Move experiment involves building resilient inner and civic architectures by demanding explicit provenance for all state-level digital tools. It's about integrating the logic of national security with the emotion of individual privacy, not as rival powers, but as complementary structural vectors. It's about balance, not blanket exposure, caller. The goal is internal compass, not external validation. The immediate next move isn't full operational disclosure, but a robust, independent oversight body with subpoena power, ensuring accountability without compromising sensitive intelligence sources. This separation of architectural signal from toxic residue is key. From that dossier to this one, Kenya's Rastafari Society loses case to decriminalize cannabis. Shifting gears to East Africa, we turn to Kenya, where the Rastafari Society recently lost a high court bid to decriminalize cannabis use. This decision carries significant implications for cultural and religious freedoms. Tonight's frame is utility over spectacle, neon haze aside. Name the metric, make the move, keep it human. Patching in a caller, go ahead.
Losing a court case to smoke weed. That sounds pretty standard, Togee. What's the actual concrete legal argument the Rastafari Society presented, and why was it rejected? Was it just about getting high?
Not just about getting high, caller, though that's often the reductive framing. The Rastafari Society of Kenya, in petition number E186 of 2020 before the High Court in Nairobi, argued that cannabis, or ganja, is a sacrament essential to their religious practice and spiritual connection, much like wine in Christian communion. They sought to decriminalize its use based on constitutional rights to freedom of conscience, religion, and belief. Justice J.A. Macau, however, upheld the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act of 1994, citing public health concerns and the potential for abuse, effectively prioritizing state control over religious freedom in this instance.
This ruling exposes the Rastafari community in Kenya to continued criminalization for their religious practices, violating core tenets of human dignity. It also sets a judicial precedent that could impact other minority religious groups. The smallest testable move is how this decision reinforces an outdated drug policy. An alternative approach would be to follow nations like South Africa, which decriminalized private cannabis use for adults, or Jamaica, which allows its use for religious and medical purposes.
My meters blink red when traditional or spiritual practices are criminalized through colonial-era laws. This isn't just about a plant. It's about the right to cultural expression and spiritual sovereignty. Who carries this next? It's the community organizers, legal aid groups, and religious freedom advocates who must now push for legislative change or pursue further appeals, continuing a long lineage of resistance.
A playable next step could involve a grassroots campaign for a specific Cannabis for Health and Religion Act in Kenya, similar to proposals seen in other African nations. This would force a re-evaluation of the 1994 Act through a lens of human rights and public health, revealing better systems.
Precisely, Kaylin. The next move experiment for communities facing similar cultural erasure is to build resilient inner and civic architectures by advocating for legislative reforms that honor consent, provenance, and dignity. It's about using myth, humor, and clear analysis to turn confusion into actionable vectors, rather than accepting a blanket legal prohibition. There's a caller on the line.
So the Rastafari should just keep fighting, even after a court loss. That sounds like a long uphill battle with little chance of success against established law. Who has the resources for that?
Same dossier, new angle, keep the thread tight.
This demonstrates the structural nature of self-worth. By continuing to challenge the status quo, even against seemingly insurmountable odds, the Rastafari Society defines its own value. The alternative to perpetual legal battles is to shift the discourse entirely, framing cannabis reform as an economic development opportunity for local farmers, as seen in parts of North America.
This isn't merely a technological upgrade.
Forget opaque algorithms shuffling artists like cards.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.